this is not an existential war. World War II was an existential war. The Civil War is an existential war. This just happens to be the present war. And for us to sit here in 2008 and turn these people into supermen that the Nazis and Imperial Japan was not is just kidding ourselves. The problem that we face now is that nobody in the administration has said stop. Nobody said they may be terrorists, they may be evildoers, but they're human beings, and we will treat them with the dignity and respect that Americans have always treated human beings. Instead, we just let it run rampant. In 1950, the Armed Forces officer said, wanton killing, torture, cruelty, or the working of unusual and necessary hardships on enemy prisoners or populations is not justified under any circumstance. We have backed away from that standard, and we have permitted good American men and women to engage in a kind of interrogation policy, not because we said, go out and torture, because we didn't. I mean, I'd like to have a nickel for every time the president said, the United States doesn't torture. We don't engage in extraordinary rendition. But the reality of it is, what was going on there continued on. You know, you look at the pictures at Abu Ghraib, you listen to the stories of what happened at Guantanamo, gloves off, fear down, and it was pretty clear that if it wasn't the express policy, it was the benign policy of the United States to engage in techniques that we had absolutely forbidden. In 1903, we sent an American major to prison for 10 years for waterboarding, a Filipino. We prosecuted Japanese for waterboarding and sent them to prison.
John, to say we've let it run rampant is just not true. People that have abused prisoners have been prosecuted criminally. When Abu Ghraib came out,
some have been prosecuted.
There has been investigation after investigation of that. I would agree. I think Abu Ghraib, there has not been sufficient responsibility laid on the commanders that let that situation get out of control. I think it needs to go way far up the Pentagon chain of command that it hasn't. But again, that happened in contravention of the interrogation rules. The interrogation rules, if they had been followed to the letter, they said that every interrogation technique had to be cleared, had to be monitored. What was going on was not interrogation. This was a bunch of deranged, sadistic guards working in the middle of the night that were getting their jollies on these prisoners. It had nothing to do with the interrogation rules.
Rick? Well, and I think we need to put this Abu Ghraib thing to rest. And you're absolutely right. This was not the interrogations we're talking about. This was a bunch of military policemen running amok. It was a breakdown of where were their officers, where were the NCOs. It was a complete breakdown of the chain of command. It was set up by the command in Baghdad. And there have been careers run for this. General Sanchez is out of the Army now. And he set up an unworkable chain of command. He put the intelligence people in charge of the prison.
But some of the jollies that have been described here were techniques that were actually used in Vietnam. Somebody told them what to do. It wasn't simple improvisation.
We're having this debate, and the public should, I think, understand this. We're having this debate as if, and I think Heather articulated this point, tried to make this point, that everybody that came in on the battlefield in Afghanistan, whether they be Taliban or so-called Arab insurgent, really had a lot of information. Her position is that people were not cooperating. They were not cooperating, and because they had been trained. And the fact of the matter is they weren't trained. The fact of the matter was the reason why they weren't cooperating is because they didn't know anything. By and large, you have to separate the Taliban from the Arab al-Qaeda fighter. They're two distinct groups. In point of fact, they don't get along quite well. So if somebody is not cooperating, doesn't mean that they have been trained. The fact of the matter is that a lot of our people on the ground in Bagram, and I'm quite familiar with it on the military side, had no idea what they were doing.
Is this foe different from the other foes that we faced? This foe has stated, especially the high-value prisoners, those on the inside of al-Qaeda, have stated that they are ready for death. Can you break this foe by building a rapport? Jack? Rick?
Yeah, I'll take that. Ideally, you want to break any foe. And Jack, I agree that rapport building, if you have time, is the best way to go. The question is sometimes you don't. Well, the point is sometimes you don't have the time. But I believe the foe is a different one than we've ever faced before. We're not dealing with a state. We're not dealing with someone with defined borders. These are not soldiers in an army. This is an ideal. These are committed warriors in a religious battle. And I think that brings something that we've never dealt with before, and I don't think we're very well prepared to do that.
And can I also add something that
Just briefly.
was already mentioned? The destructive power, this is an asymmetrical war, as John said. The destructive power that now lies available to individuals that are not a member of the state, that cannot be deterred as states can, is unlike anything that we've faced before with the availability of nuclear weapons.
Our distinguished colleagues don't have their act together. Jack seems to be arguing that it is silly to counterproductively use stress techniques and accomplish a lot of rapport. Nobody disagrees. Nobody would be a fool to suggest we should promiscuously use stress techniques. But it's equally foolish to say we should never use them, because there may be circumstances where they're necessary. And the true wisdom lies in ascertaining which one is which. And mistakes can be made. But wouldn't it be a mistake, Jack, to just take something entirely off the table? Do you think that everybody is subject to
That's
being...
a sentence?
Where
was the period?
Let me address this to Jack first, because you raised the issue of rapport building as an effective way to get actionable intelligence.
That's the only effective.
That's not what I'm saying. I used the word rapport building, certainly. Did I engage in harsh interrogation techniques? Of course I did. But harsh doesn't mean that I was engaging in sleep deprivation. It doesn't mean that I was engaging in some of these other techniques that we've now all identified. The harshest thing I ever had to do was to let somebody listen to Barry Manilow for 24 hours. That would be considered...
Sounds awful.
Doesn't it? Honestly. No, what I'm saying is that there is this supposition out there that al-Qaeda is everywhere. There's this supposition that the Taliban, is al-Qaeda, and we fail to make distinctions between that. If I asked the audience tonight, and I'll ask my distinguished colleagues up here, and David, you can be the first one, how many members of al-Qaeda do you think there are?
Oh boy, is this a multiple choice?
I mean, the other side is arguing that this enemy is so vast, so depraved, so craven, they want to kill thousands of us. There's no question about that. There's no question that what they want to do. We saw that. But my point to you is, when I took the original membership list off of Ali Muhammad for al-Qaeda, there were 72 members.
There's probably a lot more now.
Well,
the cell structure within al-Qaeda consists of 4 to 6 operatives. You are trying to find on a beach a small dime. That's what we're up against.
But Jack, that's a different argument. I mean, it doesn't matter whether they have 1 million or 10,000. Again, given the availability of weapons of mass destruction, that's what we're up against, and that's the fear that
What are the weapons of mass destruction that they have? Airplanes?
There is the possibility.
They don't have nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Well, come on,
You
Heather.
think it's not going to happen?
You think Al-Qaeda's got nuclear
I'm
weapons?
going to break in here.
They're seeking...
Well, come on.
It's not
relentlessly
possible. I'm
seeking.
glad
Relentlessly seeking.
Rick may know this. Al-Qaeda first tried to get fissionable material in 1993. What they got was red mercury. They got scammed.
yeah.
And we got that from what? We got that from one of the guys that we cooperated with. So not only did we learn about what they were trying to do, we knew how they went about it.
I hope that will prompt the audience to raise questions about the actual nature and the extent of the threat.